Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Dr. Philippe Wolgen. He's CEO of Clinuvel. We're going to discuss how the company is taking a dual focus in pharma as well as cosmetics. Dr. Wolgen, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Great having me.
And in person this time. It's been a couple of years since we spoke. Remind the audience, give us a brief summary of Clinuvel.
Clinuvel is a biopharmaceutical company that is centered around a group of hormones, melanocortins. They're quite expressed in the brain and in the skin. And the company is uniquely focused because after 40 years of researching these melanocortins and using them in man, we're now able to translate these fragments into cosmetics. So we will have a core pharmaceutical company that actually is franchising into cosmetics, and that's a unique position in the world.
And Clinuvel, you're one of the few specialty pharma companies that's profitable and you're issuing dividends. What's the foundation for success there?
Well, there is a 12-year run-up where we needed to turn around the company after 25 years of history, and we did it at a very low-cost base. And that served as a model to also to show the industry that you can actually lower your fixed cost and manage your variables. And so we developed from inception to market at 93 million, which is a fraction of what mainstream pharma is spending. And so as a reference, the Tough Center of Drug Development, or the Congressional Budget Office, says that you need to spend about 600 to 2 billion for a drug development, and we did it for 93. So you can demonstrate that it is possible to do at lower cost. And that has reverberations also to the payors, because the payors more and more are scrutinizing how these companies are spending money. So if you can do it at 15% of the total amount that is median in the industry, you show that you can be efficient and fast in developing it.
And for nearly the past year, we've experienced volatile markets. And of course, despite the excellent performance, Clinuvel, of course, was impacted by the macro environment. Why do you think that is? And then what's your trajectory in this current market environment?
Well, there's a big disparity between the financial position of the company as it is now, because we've been in the best financial position now compared to the last 42 years, and the broader market dynamics that have brought down the mid-sized companies. But in general, I'm quite optimistic. Having been 3 decades in the market, I see that the value investment comes back to these companies that are based on strong fundamentals, that have cash, that have real revenues, certainly generated in the US. So as a major owner in this company, I'm quite optimistic that we will rebound.
Let's talk about Clinuvel listing on Nasdaq, because last time you and I spoke, there was 4 criterion that needed to be achieved to list. Where are you now?
You've got a very good memory. So there are 3 criterion left. So we have a self-imposed 21 list criterion, and these criterion are born out of analyses of these foreign issues that came to Nasdaq, but that haven't done that well. So we composed a checklist, a pilot list that we wanted to fulfill. There are 3 criteria left. One is a US-centric operations where revenues are generated in multiple streams here in the US, and with the cosmetic venture that is now coming. The second one is a US management team on the ground, and with the imminent hire of a US counsel, we think we'll fulfill that criterion too. And 3 is the wider visibility in an environment that's conducive to finding new companies with an attractive US story. And our story is going to be very US-centric, since we are the only company that is systemically bringing back the color of patients that have lost it in vitiligo. So we've got a North American story to tell.
And you also announced that new direction where you're going to take that dual focus on pharmaceuticals and cosmetics. Is there a bigger ambition behind there in terms of brand recognition?
Well, we've worked 40 years to come to this point, so of course there's a much bigger ambition. The ambition is to turn this company into a household name by January 1, 2026, because we're the only company that can translate these melanocortins, having the data and evidence in patients, and translating it to the wider cosmetic market for people like you and I that need solar protection and DNA repair as the first step to cancer prevention. So it's quite an exhilarating time.
And you mentioned in 2022 that your registered account in terms of shareholders for Clinuvel was 30% US investors.
Right.
Is that the case now? And what's your outlook for the near-term future of Clinuvel?
Well, that's a really important part. Without marketing the company too much in the US, a third of our register is increasing year on year. It's now about 31% US investors. But with US revenues generated on the ground, with vitiligo coming, we have now a US story to tell. And so the contemplation that we will make as a board of directors is a single listing. Either we remain fully listed in Australia, or we transition and re-domicile to the US. But we will be different than most of our peers. It will not be a halfway house where we have dual listings. It's one or the other.
Right, right.
And so you don't split your liquidity.
And we spoke about Clinuvel navigating the current times. When you think about the macro environment more holistically, what's your outlook in terms of the global economy?
Well, I'm quite optimistic as opposed to what I read in the press and we hear from our investment bankers. And the reason is that we were due to have a correction in the markets. The price earnings values and multiples were so high that you knew that some way the correction would come. If I look at the end of 21, we were trading at 90 plus, peers were also. So we were quite realistic that it would not be sustainable. We could not foresee the banking crisis or the Ukraine war. However, I do think that in these times we will rebound much faster than people think.
Well, and that was to your point earlier where perhaps this valuation reset needed to happen, where profitability counts, a good management team counts, board governance counts. Not just telling a story, but being able to execute is really under a microscope now.
Well, if you go back to the various crises, let's say 2007 and 2008, those companies that were trading on fundamentals, had cash in the banks, did not need to go back to market periodically, were doing much better in the rebound than those that were serially raising money, either equity or debt. And I think we positioned the company in that space.
All right, Dr. Wolgen, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.